What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Saturday show. Now, on Saturdays, I like to go back through the week of Newswave and see what everyone had to say. We were one day short this week because of Thanksgiving, so there was no Newswave on Friday, but we're going through Monday through Thursday today, and it should be pretty cool because there were some good topics, a lot of Pokemon Let's Go, some Fallout in there. I'm sure Fallout 76 is probably still popular online, not necessarily for the right reasons, but nonetheless, it's talked about a lot, and it was talked about quite a bit this past week. So we're going to get into that. We're going to start with a quick piece of news. But first, guys, as always, if you enjoy these videos, do hit the like button. It does help out. It has been helping out quite a bit on YouTube. That piece of news we're going to start with is, well, Pokemon Let's Go, because the sales were actually released by the company. And of course, when a company wants to release their sales numbers, it's for a good reason, not necessarily that it's doing poorly. And yeah, Pokemon Let's Go, as most of us probably figured, because it's a Pokemon game, did really well. Did 3 million units within the first week. 3 million units. Do you know what that means? That means it's the fastest selling Switch game to date. That's faster than Super Mario Odyssey. Keep in mind, Super Mario Odyssey sold 9 million copies in about 2 months. Yeah. It's going to be interesting because this is around the same time Mario Odyssey was, of course, going through the holidays. And here we go now with Pokemon Let's Go going through the holidays. I have a feeling we're going to see the next report. It's going to be going through Christmas. There is a good chance, I say good chance because it's very possible, although Mario Kart got a bundle, that Pokemon Let's Go may end up as Nintendo's best-selling game on their the reports they put out for their investors in one shot, in one quarter, boom. It's possible just because of that holiday, but we'll see. Because like I said, Mario Kart is the other one that could possibly jump over Mario Odyssey, and I think it will because it got bundled in, and they'll count bundles as sales like they do with everything. Everyone does that. All the companies do that. So I think it's either going to be Mario Kart or Pokemon Let's Go at the top of the charts, because Pokemon Let's Go is not really going to slow down with the holidays right around the corner. In fact, it's going to probably start to pick up, and if it's already done 3 million units now, what's going to happen at the end of January when we find out about really the reporting that it's done throughout December? It's going to be something else to see. But yeah, the Pokemon effect is happening. And starting with Monday, we saw Pokemon Let's Go get off to a fast start in the UK, being the best-selling game with the two games combined. Spyro managed to top the charts for single SKUs. A diskless Xbox could also be coming next year, per report from Thura. Meg B says, that Pokemon game is really doing something to people. My brother, 19, wants a Switch now because he saw me playing Let's Go Eevee. My boyfriend won't stop playing the game. Both are pretty hardcore gamers and they love challenging games. I am shocked. Neither are coming from that phone game either. Of course, Meg is referring to Pokemon Go, which is where a lot of people were figuring some would come from. But yeah, I think you're right. I think there's just people in general who see this game and they just want to play it because it's a genuinely fun game. It really is. It's not inherently difficult. I've played through it now. I beat the Elite Four. I went through the Elite Four in one shot. It really wasn't that hard. I think a lot of it has to do with you get experience pretty quickly, and especially if you go out and you're just catching Pokemon, you'll see that your party, which all levels up pretty much the same way. That's the most balanced team I think I've ever shown up to the Elite Four with in like my history of playing Pokemon games. That was, all of my Pokemon were basically around the same level. They were all leveled higher than Elite Four, and I just rolled through them. I never really had an issue. In fact, I don't think I ever actually lost a match in that game, now I think about it. Like, you know, where you black out and you gotta go back to the... I never had that happen. I don't know if there's an animation or anything after that. Maybe I'll just do that just to see what happens. But yeah, that never happened. So the game's not inherently difficult, but it is fun. And as long as you know what you're getting into when you go into it, you'll be okay. It's not that hardcore Pokemon experience coming next year. It's a more mainstream kind of loose game. It's not like super difficult. So, but it is fun. Absolutely. It is a fun game. And I think people are kind of being pulled in just because they also see Pokemon Yellow and they remember what they used to play back in the day. It was a lot more fun, I think, for me because I'm playing through it and I remember a lot of the stuff. And of course, you're seeing it in better fidelity and everything with the visuals. And it's just fun revisiting a lot of this stuff. I know Kanto has gotten on a lot of people's nerves, but someone like me who hasn't played Pokemon in a while, it was actually kind of refreshing to go back through that and just have fun playing through it. Cactus says, I don't know if most retailers would even stock a diskless Xbox. They'd be losing so much money on physical games that they don't really have an incentive to. So this is interesting because you are right to a degree. See, if they sell a diskless Xbox, they're not really getting much after that. See, when we would sell a system back at the different stores I would work at and even run some of them, we didn't get any money on the initial console sale. We'd usually lose money because we had to pay for shipping to get that thing in there, and we'd actually lose like $4 or $5. The idea was to make a new customer who would then come back, or if it's during the holidays, you sell an Xbox, you sell a game, you sell a controller, you sell a headset, and all of a sudden you end up making $40, $50 on the sale in profit just because of all the stuff that's tacked on. If you sell a diskless Xbox, you're not really making a customer unless they need a controller every year or something, because the idea is that they come back and buy games, specifically used games. If this is a diskless Xbox One, then they're probably not coming back to you unless they get into the business of selling game cards where you gotta go in, you buy it, and then you scratch the code off. But at that point, if you have a way to use a credit or debit card, I don't really know why you'd make the trip, considering you're just basically having to scratch off and then punch in a code. Unless you just have cash. I mean, that's the only reason I can see it, and that is happening now at Walmart, GameStop, other places. They are literally selling cards now instead of some physical games. But you're right, a diskless Xbox, I wouldn't want to carry that if I was running a store. Tuesday, we went over some of the bigger Black Friday deals to check out, and also touched on an interesting development that saw Sony censoring parts of Dead or Alive Extreme 3, while Nintendo did not. Game Freak says, the way I see it, Nintendo won't censor these games since they know that not only does censorship bother people, but people picking this game up would already be aware of its content and be prepared. Parents of younger children wouldn't be interested in picking it up. What Sony probably sees is that so many people have a PS4 that it is somewhat likely to be exposed to younger children. So what's very interesting about this is if you remember what their crossplay excuse was, it was because they needed to think of the children, and that was a bad excuse anyway. Obviously, there's now crossplay with Fortnite, so that goes out the window. What I think is happening here is Sony doesn't really need to work super hard anymore for the consumer, to get the consumer in, since most of us are already in with the PlayStation at this point. I mean, they're going to be what they're coming up on 100 million, and it's probably going to happen next year. I think that's pretty obvious. So they've already really got to that point. They don't really need to work harder to get people. I also think maybe they're trying to build PR up, or maybe you're right. Maybe they're working towards, you know, the kids that they're either have on board or they're working to get on board. It's a very odd policy, but it is something that seems relatively new. As I said before, this is technically a re-release of that game, and before it was no problem, and now it is. I think Nintendo is letting this stuff through because they know they need to work for the gamer right now. After the Wii U, they absolutely need to do what they can to get developers on board, which they have mostly, as we've seen some developers say, I didn't think we'd be allowed to put that on the Switch, but they welcomed us, so we're in. That's the biggest thing. I think Sony doesn't care as much because they're so stacked with their install base that developers are just going to be like, yeah, all right, we have to do it. Nintendo wants them to come over, so they're being as open as possible when it comes to this stuff. More open than they would have been in the past, definitely. So it makes sense from both ends. Obviously, Sony is dominating so much they don't have to. Nintendo has to. Wednesday saw a firmware update to version 6.2.0 for the Switch that made things difficult on hackers after Nintendo moved around and changed a lot of the code in the background. We also saw the MPDs released for October that showed Call of Duty take the top spot with Red Dead right behind it. Good Vibe says, I mean, is Nintendo supposed to make firmware that pleases hackers and makes it easier? Well, no, obviously it's their prerogative to protect their system. The issue they've run into is this is probably the biggest threat they've ever had from hackers, mostly because they sold 20 million Switch systems that were badly flawed when it comes to security, and they are literally hacking the Switch with a paperclip. Yeah, that's where we are right now, and no matter how much Nintendo changes around, it's always temporary with those systems. Fortunately for them, it seems like they've kind of worked it out at a hardware level, but 20 million Switch systems are out there. Even with the DS, where they had those Ace Cart, the R4 flash cart things, even with the Wii, which eventually became Legacy, and now it's hacked up like crazy, but no one really cares as much. Great system to get, though, by the way, if you want to hack a system. It works really well. And then the Wii U, of course, they left the web browser in there that ended up biting them in the end, right, when people use that to hack the system. And then the 3DS also. It hasn't been a great road for Nintendo when it comes to hackers, and the Switch is probably the worst system that they've put out when it comes to its vulnerabilities. It's not very good. But yeah, you're right. They're going to keep doing that. They're going to keep moving stuff. That's all they can do right now. It's a temporary fix, but it is a fix possibly to scare off or annoy people to where, I don't feel like dealing with that anymore, so they won't. It could work, but until then, until they cycle through most of those, it's there's not much they can do. Neo Karen says, no Tomb Raider in the MPD. Tomb Raider IP is absolutely done now. What a waste. Lara lost her identity a bit more after each sequel of this reboot, and now it's dead. The last chance they have is to reboot it again and bring back the real Lara. So yeah, it didn't make the top 10. It actually came in at number 14, which actually was below My Hero's One's Justice. In fact, if you go to the individual charts, like we talked about the Switch and the Xbox and the PlayStation 4, where you divide them up and you see what each game sold, it only made the top 10 when it came to the original Xbox, whereas on the PS4, it seemed to have been knocked out by My Hero One's Justice. Yes, that is where Tomb Raider is now. Way back before, Tomb Raider 2013, that would have been something that would have been in the MPDs. We would have noticed it and said, oh, there it is in the top 5. It didn't even make the top 10. It almost fell out of the top 15, to be honest. It's a shame to see how far Tomb Raider has fallen, and I'm not really sure what they can do at this point. I mean, Shadow of the Tomb Raider was very mediocre. It got lost in the shuffle, definitely. It got overshadowed by a lot of stuff that was around in October, whether it was Assassin's Creed, the build to Red Dead, Call of Duty, apparently My Hero's One's Justice. It just didn't really have much of a chance. I mean, there's just a possibility that Mario Party even pulled revenue share from that just because people decided which way to go and they went with Mario Party. But yeah, Tomb Raider, I don't know what they're going to do with it. I don't know if they'll reboot it again. It's hard to say. It's pretty clear this was not a good cap to the trilogy, I guess, they were working on, and we'll see if they can reboot it all over again. I actually like the grittier Tomb Raider, so I hope they kind of stick with that, but I would like to think Tomb Raider's not completely done and is dead for good. I would like to see them go back, reboot it, and try a new direction. Finally, on Thursday, we took a look at Pokemon Let's Go in Japan, selling over 660,000 copies and managing to help move 200,000 Switch units. Fallout 76 was also back in the news after being discounted to $40 a week after release. Misk Sloan says, I remember when Spawnwave did Dragon Ball Super reviews. I actually liked doing those. I just didn't know how many people were really interested in them anymore. I don't really know where the audience is with that. But yeah, I actually liked Dragon Ball Super when I even do reviews and talk about different things in it. And it was fun. That Broly movie is coming up. Maybe I'll see that and talk about it on the channel. I did one not recently, but semi-recently, kind of months ago, and I wasn't sure. People seemed confused as to why I was talking about Dragon Ball. If I did it and I thought about it, maybe a separate channel for that kind of stuff, but I really, out of anime stuff, I mostly just watch Dragon Ball and My Hero Academia. Those are the two things I watch, so I don't know if that's enough to hold up a channel and just do that, and maybe I just post occasionally, but it's something I've thought about, talking about My Hero and Dragon Ball, because I would watch those as soon as they're released. My Hero was getting like a dual release on Hulu as well, and I'd watch that every single Saturday. They're working on the next season now, but for a while there I was watching every single weekend, and it was awesome. Dragon Ball Super, I would actually stay up and people would live stream it on YouTube, so it'd kind of show up and come on YouTube at like 8 p.m. at night Eastern my time, so I would just watch it there, and then like an hour later people would release it with the dubs. But Dragon Ball's fun. I wouldn't mind doing something with it in the future, and you guys will let me know if that's something people are interested in. Trip and Fall says 200,000 consoles in Japan in 1 week. Yeah, that's actually, this happened last year as well, and it mostly happened when we started getting to December. This is a little earlier, because if you remember last year, Mario Odyssey was around 130 to 140,000 units in a week. That is a lot of Switch systems in a week in November. We're gonna get in December, and last year we saw a couple of weeks get broken off with 260,000 units even for the Switch. This year is going to be more as long as the supply is there, and I think Nintendo will have the supply there. So don't be surprised if you see a 300,000 unit week, I know it sounds crazy. It's possible with Smash and Pokemon at the same time that you could see a 400,000 unit Switch week in one shot. Leading up to the holidays. You'll probably see it 14 days before the 25th, somewhere in there. You'll see a week where it really blows up, and then it sticks to that. The PlayStation 4 is going to be an interesting one to watch, because last year around this time, when I went back and looked at Media Create sales charts, it was actually breaking off 70 and 80,000 unit weeks, and I don't think it's going to do that this year. I think we'll see a sharp decline on the PS4 side, and I do think we'll see a bit of an incline on the Switch side going forward, because Pokemon and because Smash is the biggest thing, because last year around that time there was Xenoblade, but Xenoblade is not Smash. Smash is going to be fascinating to watch in these charts, and we're going to be tracking that initial sales, because the UK will come out first, then we'll hear from Media Create, unless Nintendo decides to tell us about day one sales. And if we hear about day one sales, it's going to be something else. That means it's a massive number. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for the Saturday show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit the like button if you liked it, dislike it. If not, Let me know what you think about any of the stuff we talked about today, whether it's the Pokemon Let's Go sales, the gameplay, maybe you're enjoying it. Let me know what you think about that, or the hacking scene for the Switch, or what do you think about Fallout 76 and what seems to be a pretty turbulent week for it, leading into a $20 discount, knocking down to $40 after about 7 days on the market. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.